Welcome everyone to Chapter 2, Matter, Energy, and Life. Last week's lecture was meant to provide you with sort of a surface level overview of environmental science to build a foundation as we start exploring the subject. And this week in Chapter 2, we are going to continue building that foundation, but in a different way. So you may remember us mentioning last week that environmental science is an interdisciplinary science, meaning that it draws from many different scientific fields like biology, chemistry, geology, and that means in order to really understand how environmental systems work, we have to learn some basic fundamentals from these fields. And really, the field where it makes the most sense to start is in chemistry, because chemistry principles are woven into so much of what we know about the phenomena that occur in the environment. In order to understand why the ocean is becoming more acidic and why that matters, you have to know a bit about chemistry. In order to understand why certain chemicals are poisoning living organisms and depleting biodiversity, you have to know a bit about chemistry. So, if you are feeling intimidated by needing to learn some chemistry, I want you to take a deep breath and relax because we are going to move slowly through this stuff. We're going to keep things simple and basic. And by the end of this chapter, you will have the chemistry foundations that you need to go into other chapters ready to fully grasp the concepts that we're going to learn about. Okay, so here we go. Here is a list of exactly what we are going to cover in this chapter. We are going to describe matter, meaning the stuff that the world as we know it is made of, and the chemical bonds that hold that matter together. We are going to look at a type of chemical reaction called redox reactions, which play an important role in certain environmental cycles that we're going to be learning about later. We will take a close look at one particular chemical, water, arguably the most important chemical to living organisms, which has a special set of unique properties that make it able to support life. So we'll look at what those properties are. We will also look at pH and the related concepts of acidity, basicity, and hydrogen ions. And then we'll move into a phase of the chapter focused on energy. So we'll explore different types of energy and metabolism. And we'll get an overview of the main processes that living things use to get energy: photosynthesis and cellular respiration. While we're on the topic of metabolism and energy, we will also look at how food chains and food webs work, and how living things get energy in a food web and a food chain. Okay, so that's an overview. Let's now ease our way into that first learning outcome by taking a look at matter. So matter is what the natural world is made of. It's defined as material that occupies space and has mass. And everything in nature is made of matter, including both living things and non-living things. The basic unit that comprises matter is called atoms. So any object that exists, if you break it down into its smallest, ultra tiny pieces, those pieces are called atoms. And as we will see in a moment, there are many different types of atoms, but they all share a basic structure. So they have a central cluster of particles called the nucleus, and then one or more rings around the outside called orbitals that contain these orbiting particles. And you've probably seen a diagram of the solar system before with the planets revolving around the sun. That is not unlike the structure of an atom, where the sun is like the nucleus and the orbits of the planets are just like the orbitals of the atom. So what you see on the screen is, of course, just a cartoon depiction, but in 2013, the first ever image of an atom was captured using an extremely powerful microscope, and we can see the structure laid out with the central cluster of particles, the nucleus, and the rings of orbiting particles. But what are those particles that are found within the atom, within the nucleus, and orbiting around the nucleus? Well, we call these subatomic particles, and there are three of them. There's the protons, which have a positive electric charge and are found inside the nucleus. Then the neutrons, which have no electric charge and are also found in the nucleus alongside the protons. And then lastly, the electrons, which have a negative electric charge, and these are the ones that are orbiting in the orbitals. Another thing that's important to know about atoms is that there are many different types. The different types of atoms are called elements. So an element is a specific type of atom, and they are distinguished from each other by the number of protons in their nucleus. So, for example, atoms of the element carbon have 6 protons in their nucleus, no more, no less than 6. If we're talking about nitrogen atoms, they have 7 protons in their nucleus. And if we're talking about oxygen atoms, they have 8 protons in their nucleus. So this number of protons is what makes an element an element. Carbon is, by definition, an atom that has 6 protons in its nucleus. That never changes. Those 6 protons are what make carbon carbon. All of these different variants of an atom with different numbers of protons are laid out in an organizational chart that you may have seen before called the periodic table of elements, shown on the right-hand side of the slide here. And each square in the periodic table is dedicated to one element. And in fact, if you look at the square for a particular element, there will be a whole number at the top, and that corresponds to the number of protons in that element. So again, carbon has 6, nitrogen has 7, oxygen has 8. That defines how the periodic table is laid out. So now we know what atoms are and what make up matter, and there are different types of atoms called elements. A final important idea to introduce before we close out this section is that atoms of most elements don't like to be solo. They like to associate with other atoms. And when they do so, they form what's called molecules. A molecule is defined as a group of atoms held together in stable formation. The one that you see pictured here is a molecule made up of one oxygen atom that is associating with 2 hydrogen atoms. So in other words, this is H2O, or water. Water is made up of exactly 3 atoms, 1 oxygen, 2 hydrogens, but in general, molecules can be made of as little as 2 atoms, ranging all the way up to billions of atoms for large complex molecules like DNA, for example. Now, in the next section, we are going to look at the different ways that atoms come together to form molecules, so stay tuned for that.